It was a quiet evening at Elysian Grace, a fine dining restaurant where luxury reigned supreme. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over elegantly dressed diners. The soft murmur of conversation and clinking glasses filled the air, until a single shocking moment shattered the calm. A waitress, her composure cracked, hurled a glass of water at a man seated near the kitchen doors. The room froze. Water dripped from the man's face onto his plain white shirt. Gasps rippled through the restaurant as everyone turned to see who it was. It wasn't just any man. Hollywood icon, the beloved global icon, sat calmly, wiping his face with a napkin. His expression, unreadable. No anger, no shock, just calmness that unnerved everyone watching. What could he have done to deserve that? Whispered a nearby diner. Will he make a scene? Another wondered. Hollywood icon didn't lash out. Instead, he smiled faintly, his composure an enigma in a room now buzzing with judgment and speculation. The waitress, Samantha, seemed shaken but defiant, a mix of guilt and pride flickering in her eyes as she avoided his steady gaze. Who would throw water at Hollywood icon? And why? More importantly, why wasn't he retaliating? What unfolded next left everyone in the restaurant, and anyone hearing this story, reflecting on respect, humility, and the surprising power of grace under pressure. If you're ready to uncover the stunning truth behind this dramatic encounter, keep watching. What happens next will leave you speechless. Elysian Grace wasn't just any restaurant. Nestled in the heart of the city, it was a sanctuary for the elite. Crystal chandeliers hung delicately from the ceiling, their soft golden glow cascading over tables draped in pristine linens. Conversations flowed in hushed tones, blending seamlessly with the soft clinking of glasses. Every detail in the restaurant spoke of exclusivity, from the art on the walls to the aroma of handcrafted dishes. On this particular evening, the restaurant was its usual symphony of luxury and refinement, until a man entered, dressed in stark contrast to the polished scene. Hollywood icon walked in, wearing a slightly wrinkled white shirt and a pair of worn jeans. His scuffed leather loafers seemed out of place in a room filled with designer shoes. He didn't seek attention, yet the weight of his presence was impossible to ignore. The hostess, Samantha, noticed him immediately. She was sharp-featured, her confidence almost palpable as she stood at the entrance, guarding the restaurant's exclusivity like a gatekeeper. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she scanned Hollywood icon, her practiced smile faltering for a moment. She glanced at his attire, taking in the casual ensemble. This can't be serious, she thought, but her tone remained polite. Good evening, sir. Do you have a reservation? No, I don't, Hollywood icon replied with calm certainty. I'd like a table for one, please. Her smile tightened. Samantha was no stranger to discerning which guests fit the mold of Elysian Grace's clientele and which didn't. She hesitated before responding, masking her doubt with a clipped professional tone. Of course, sir. Let me see what's available. As she led him through the dining room, her choices spoke louder than words. Instead of seating him in the prime section, where chandeliers cast a warm glow and diners basked in luxury, she placed him near the kitchen doors. The area was dimly lit, and the clatter of dishes disrupted the otherwise serene ambiance. This should be perfect for you, she said, placing the menu on the table with a deliberate thud. Her tone was sweet, but the faint smugness in her eyes didn't go unnoticed. Hollywood icon looked around briefly, his expression unchanged. Thank you, he said, his voice calm and devoid of any offense. He opened the menu, taking in the elaborate options without a hint of hesitation. Nearby, Howard and Ellen, a silver-haired couple who were regulars, exchanged knowing glances. Howard leaned toward his wife, his voice low. That's Samantha again, always sizing people up. Ellen shook her head, sighing. It's a shame, he seems perfectly polite. Back at the hostess stand, Samantha's co-worker, Lucas, a younger man with a kind disposition, noticed the interaction. Did you see him? Samantha whispered, her voice low but sharp. He doesn't belong here. Lucas frowned slightly, his tone cautious. He seems fine to me, just a guy looking to enjoy a meal. Samantha rolled her eyes. Fine, look at him. This isn't a diner. We cater to a certain type of clientele, and he's not it. Meanwhile, Hollywood icon sat quietly, unfazed by the subtle whispers or glances in his direction. He browsed the menu with genuine interest. his calm presence almost unnerving, in a room so accustomed to status displays and social posturing. Howard and Ellen continued their quiet observations. He doesn't seem bothered at all, Ellen noted. That kind of composure is rare. Howard chuckled softly. Let's see how long it lasts. The restaurant's undercurrent of judgment and tension began to build. Samantha, still watching Hollywood Icon from the hostess stand, felt an unshakable irritation. Let's see how he reacts when he gets the bill, she muttered under her breath. But Hollywood Icon gave no sign of discomfort. Instead, his serene demeanor seemed to subtly challenge the assumptions swirling around him. The moment the steak was ready, Samantha emerged from the kitchen carrying the silver tray with an air of exaggerated authority. Her steps were deliberate, her posture straight as if she were performing for an audience, which, in a way, she was. The dining room had become a stage, and every diner was a captivated spectator. As Samantha approached Hollywood Icon's table, the tension in the room was thick. She placed the plate in front of him with a flourish, her polished smile barely concealing her lingering smugness. "Your Wagyu steak, sir," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Enjoy." "Oh, thank you," Hollywood Icon replied, his tone as steady as ever. He picked up his utensils with precision, cutting into the steak and taking a slow, deliberate bite. Samantha lingered, waiting for something, anything that would confirm her assumptions. But Hollywood Icon's expression remained neutral, his focus entirely on the meal. She turned on her heel, her irritation mounting as she walked back to the hostess stand. "I don't get it," she whispered to Lucas. "Why isn't he reacting?" Lucas, who had been silently observing the entire evening, shrugged. "Maybe he's just not what you think he is." Before Samantha could respond, the sound of the kitchen doors swinging open drew the room's attention. Anna, the restaurant manager, walked in with her usual poise. Her sharp eyes scanned the dining room, but when they landed on Hollywood Icon, her expression shifted. Her features softened, and a look of recognition flashed across her face. She strode toward his table, her steps confident but unhurried. Samantha noticed immediately, her stomach tightening as Anna stopped beside Hollywood Icon's table and addressed him warmly. "Oh, Mr. Hollywood Icon," Anna said, her voice carrying a note of genuine respect. "It's an honor to have you dining with us tonight." The room fell silent. Every pair of eyes was now fixed on Hollywood Icon, and a wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. "Did she just say Mr. Hollywood Icon?" someone whispered. As in Hollywood Icon, Samantha's face went pale. Her earlier confidence crumbled as the realization dawned. She had spent the entire evening underestimating and undermining one of the most beloved actors in the world. Hollywood Icon looked up at Anna, his expression softening into a polite smile. "Thank you, Anna. The pleasure's mine," Anna continued, her tone almost reverent. "I wish we'd known you were coming. We would have prepared something special for you." Hollywood Icon chuckled lightly, his voice calm and kind. "No need for special treatment. Everything's been great so far." Samantha, standing frozen at the hostess stand, felt the weight of every gaze in the room shift toward her. Diners weren't just marveling at Hollywood Icon, they were whispering about her. The judgment in their eyes was unmistakable. "Oh!" Anna turned slightly, her sharp gaze landing on Samantha. "Samantha," she said, her tone firm but measured, "could I have a word with you?" Samantha's throat tightened. She nodded quickly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, of course." As Anna led Samantha toward the back of the restaurant, the room buzzed with hushed conversations. Howard and Ellen exchanged a knowing glance. "She didn't see that coming," Howard murmured. Ellen smiled faintly. "A lesson she won't forget." In the office, Anna faced Samantha with a look of calm authority. "Do you want to explain what's been going on tonight?" she asked. Samantha stammered, struggling to find the right words. "I didn't know who he was," she admitted, her voice shaky. "I thought he didn't belong here." Anna sighed deeply, pinching the bridge of her nose. "Samantha, it's not about knowing who someone is. It's about treating every guest with respect, regardless of their appearance." "I didn't mean to," Samantha started, but Anna held up a hand, cutting her off. "It's not about intent," Anna said firmly. "It's about the choices you made, and tonight, you chose poorly." Samantha lowered her head, shame washing over her. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Sorry is a start," Anna replied, but actions speak louder. You'll have to prove you've learned from this. Meanwhile, in the dining room, Hollywood icon continued his meal, his calm presence now carrying an air of quiet authority. Diners who had initially dismissed him as an outsider now looked on with admiration. Howard leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smile playing on his lips. He didn't even have to say a word, Howard said. Just his presence was enough. Ellen nodded, her eyes sparkling with amusement, and Samantha thought she was teaching him a lesson. By the time Anna and Samantha returned to the floor, the energy in the room had shifted. Samantha walked with her head slightly lowered, her usual confidence replaced with quiet humility. Anna approached Hollywood Icon's table once more, her expression apologetic. "Mr. Hollywood Icon," she said, "I want to personally apologize for any disrespect you may have experienced tonight." Hollywood Icon looked up at her, his expression as gracious as ever. "There's no need to apologize," he said. "Mistakes happen. What matters is what we learn from them." Anna nodded, her respect for him deepening. "Thank you for your understanding." As she stepped away, the room seemed to exhale collectively. The tension that had hung in the air all evening was finally beginning to dissipate, replaced by a quiet sense of reflection. The hum of conversation in the dining room quieted as Hollywood Icon rose slowly from his seat. His calm yet commanding presence drew the attention of every diner, staff member, and even the kitchen staff peeking out from behind the service doors. All eyes were on him, waiting to see what he would do or say. Hollywood Icon adjusted his jacket slightly, his movements unhurried. Then, in a voice steady but filled with quiet authority, he began to speak. "Before I leave tonight, I'd like to say a few words." The room fell completely silent, the tension thick but expectant. Even Samantha, who had retreated to the edge of the dining area, stood frozen, her breath caught in her throat. "I came here tonight for a quiet dinner," Hollywood Icon said, his tone gentle but resonant. "I didn't expect to draw attention, nor did I intend to cause a scene. But what's happened here tonight is worth addressing, not for my sake but for all of us." His gaze swept across the room, meeting the eyes of several diners and staff members. There was no anger or accusation in his expression, only sincerity and an air of reflection. "Respect," he continued, "isn't something you give to someone based on how they look, what they wear, or what you think they can afford. It's something you offer to every person, regardless of their circumstances. Not because they've earned it, but because they're human." A murmur rippled through the room, soft and contemplative. Some diners shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others nodded, their faces reflecting quiet understanding. Samantha, standing near the hostess stand, felt her cheeks flush. His words weren't directed at her specifically, but they struck a chord that was impossible to ignore. Hollywood Icon's tone softened slightly, but the depth of his message remained. "This restaurant is beautiful. The chandeliers, the fine china, the attention to detail, all of it speaks to the care that goes into creating an experience for your guests. But true beauty isn't found in these things. It's found in how you treat the people who walk through these doors." At that, a few diners exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of admiration and quiet shame. Howard and Ellen, seated near the center of the room, leaned toward each other. "He's not just calm," Howard whispered. "He's in control." Ellen nodded. "And he's teaching all of us a lesson without a single harsh word." Hollywood Icon continued, his voice unwavering. "Tonight I experienced both kindness and judgment, and while the judgment was loud, the kindness, though quieter, was far more powerful. To those who showed kindness, I want to say thank you. And to those who judged, I hope this moment gives you something to think about." The weight of his words settled over the room like a gentle but undeniable wave. Even the staff, who had initially dismissed the man in the corner table, found themselves reflecting on their own actions. Hollywood Icon turned his gaze towards Samantha, who stood motionless, her hands gripping the edge of the counter. He held her eyes for a moment, his expression firm but kind. "Mistakes happen," he said, his voice steady. "What matters is what we learn from them. And I believe everyone here is capable of change." Samantha's throat tightened as tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. She lowered her head slightly, feeling the weight of his words and the truth behind them. For the first time that evening, she saw him not as an outsider, but as someone who had endured her judgment with quiet strength and grace. Hollywood Icon addressed the room one final time. "This isn't just a lesson for one person. It's a reminder for all of us. When we judge others by appearances, we limit our ability to connect, to understand, and to grow. We miss the opportunity to see the humanity in each other. The silence that followed was profound. It wasn't the uncomfortable silence of tension, but the thoughtful stillness of reflection. Diners exchanged glances, some lowering their eyes in quiet self-awareness, as Hollywood icon stepped back slightly, signaling that he was finished. A slow clap broke the stillness. It came from Ellen, who smiled warmly as she applauded. Howard joined in, followed by a young couple at another table, and soon the entire dining room was filled with applause. The applause wasn't just for Hollywood icon, it was for the lesson he had imparted, the humility he had shown, and the opportunity to be better that he had given to everyone in the room. Samantha stood frozen, her face burning with a mix of shame and gratitude. The sound of the applause echoed in her ears, but what resonated most deeply was the look in Hollywood icon's eyes, firm yet forgiving. He wasn't condemning her, he was giving her a chance to rise above the moment. Hollywood icon inclined his head slightly in acknowledgement of the applause, then returned to his seat. He resumed his meal with the same calm precision, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But the energy in the room had shifted entirely. The diners who had initially been spectators to the drama now felt like participants in a collective moment of reflection and growth. Howard leaned toward Ellen, a satisfied smile on his face. Well, that was unexpected. Ellen chuckled softly and unforgettable. Back near the kitchen, Lucas watched the scene unfold with quiet admiration. He had tried to defend Hollywood icon earlier, albeit subtly, and now he felt a sense of pride. Justice hadn't come through confrontation, but through understanding. Samantha, standing at the edge of the dining room, exhaled deeply. The weight of the evening still pressed on her, but it was tempered with a flicker of hope. Hollywood icon's words weren't just a critique of her actions, they were an invitation to grow. As the dining room settled back into a gentle hum, Samantha remained rooted to the spot, her mind replaying Hollywood icon's words. She felt exposed but also strangely liberated. Her actions, laid bare for everyone to see, now demanded accountability. She knew there was no escaping the lesson that had unfolded tonight. Taking a deep breath, Samantha walked across the room toward Hollywood icon's table. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she forced herself to meet his gaze. When she reached him, she clasped her hands in front of her voice low and trembling. Mr. Hollywood icon, I owe you an apology, she began, her cheeks flushed with shame. I misjudged you from the moment you walked in, and I treated you unfairly. It wasn't right, and I'm deeply sorry. Hollywood icon looked up at her, his calm eyes meeting hers. There was no anger or judgment in his expression, only a quiet strength that made her feel both seen and forgiven. Samantha, he said softly, thank you for saying that. Acknowledging our mistakes is never easy, but it's the first step toward growth. She nodded, blinking back tears. I promise I'll do better. I don't want to be the kind of person who judges others like that. I believe you can grow from this, Hollywood icon replied. What matters is that you take what you've learned tonight and carry it forward. Their conversation wasn't loud or dramatic, but it felt monumental to Samantha. It wasn't just an apology. It was the beginning of a transformation. From the corner of the room, Anna watched the interaction with quiet approval. As Samantha returned to the hostess stand, Anna approached her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. That was a good start, she said. Now let's make sure it's not just words. I will, Samantha said firmly, her voice steadier now. Thank you for giving me the chance to make things right. Meanwhile, the diners were still buzzing with quiet conversation. Howard and Ellen, ever the keen observers, couldn't help but comment on the unfolding events. She handled that well, Ellen noted. I think she's learned something. Howard smiled. It's rare to see someone own up to their mistakes like that. She'll be better for it. At the bar, Lucas offered Samantha a small smile of encouragement. Hey, he said softly. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. Samantha managed a faint smile. Thanks, Lucas. It's been a long night. As the evening wore on, the energy in Elysian grace shifted. The restaurant, once filled with whispers of judgment, now carried an air of reflection and renewal. Diners left with a newfound respect for the man in the corner and for the lessons the night had imparted. Before leaving, Hollywood icon approached Anna near the kitchen. Anna, he said, thank you for everything tonight. The food was excellent. Mr. Hollywood icon, Anna replied, smiling warmly. It's been an honor to have you here. Your words meant a lot, not just to the staff but to everyone in the room. Please, call me Hollywood icon, he said, his tone light. And I'm glad this evening turned into something meaningful. As the last of the diners trickled out, Samantha lingered at the hostess stand, reflecting on the evening. She glanced at the table where Hollywood icon had sat, now empty but still carrying the weight of the night's events. I'll make this right, she whispered to herself. The night at Elysian Grace had left an indelible mark, not just on Samantha but on everyone who had witnessed the events. As the restaurant staff began their nightly cleanup, there was a quiet buzz of reflection in the air. Conversations, though subdued, carried an undertone of realization and growth. Samantha remained at the hostess stand, her thoughts racing. Every detail of the evening replayed in her mind, the assumptions she had made, the way she had treated Hollywood icon, and the calm strength he had displayed throughout it all. She felt the weight of it, but also a flicker of determination. Tonight had been a wake-up call, and she was ready to rise to the challenge. Lucas approached, holding 2 mugs of tea. He set one down in front of her, with a kind smile. You look like you could use this. Samantha glanced up at him, her lips curving into a faint, grateful smile. Thanks, Lucas. I don't think I've ever had a night like this. Lucas chuckled softly. It's not every day you meet someone like him, but you handled things well at the end. That's what matters. Samantha took a sip of the tea, the warmth spreading through her hands. I just didn't realize how quick I was to judge. It's not who I want to be. Then don't be, Lucas said simply. Start fresh tomorrow. Across the room, Anna gathered the staff for a brief meeting before they closed. She stood in the center of the group, her posture relaxed but commanding. Tonight wasn't just about serving a meal, she began, her voice steady. It was about learning a lesson, about how we treat others and how we carry ourselves, even when we don't realize we're being watched. Her gaze landed on Samantha, not with reprimand but with quiet encouragement. We're human, and we make mistakes. What matters is that we rise above them and strive to be better every single day. The staff nodded in agreement, their faces reflecting a mixture of humility and determination. For some, Hollywood icon's words had been a gentle reminder. For others, they had been a wake-up call, but for everyone, they were a call to action. The next morning, Elysian Grace reopened with a renewed sense of purpose. Samantha, now carrying herself with quiet humility, greeted each guest with genuine warmth. She no longer glanced at their attire or made snap judgments about whether they belonged. Instead, she focused on making every diner feel welcome. Howard and Ellen returned a week later, curious to see if the night's events had left a lasting impact. When Samantha approached their table, her demeanor was markedly different. She smiled warmly, her tone professional but kind as she welcomed them and took their order. Ellen leaned toward Howard, a small smile playing on her lips. She's learned, she said quietly. Howard nodded, his eyes twinkling with approval. And isn't that what life is about? The ripple effect of that evening extended far beyond the restaurant's walls. Diners who had been present shared the story with friends and family, each recounting the humility and grace Hollywood icon had shown. The tale of Elysian Grace became something of a local legend, a reminder that small moments of kindness and understanding could create profound change. Miles away, Hollywood icon sat in a quiet cafe, sipping a cup of coffee. He reflected on the evening, thinking about the transformation he had witnessed. There was no bitterness in his thoughts, only quiet satisfaction. It wasn't about being recognized or proving a point. It was about extending understanding and creating space for others to grow. He opened a small notebook he carried with him, jotting down a simple thought: respect and kindness don't cost a thing, but their impact is priceless. Closing the notebook, he finished his coffee and stepped out into the world, ready for whatever small moments of change awaited him next. Back at Elysian Grace, the staff carried on, their interactions with guests now marked by genuine warmth and attentiveness. The restaurant had changed, not in its decor or menu, but in its heart. And Samantha, who had once judged a man by his appearance, now led by example, showing respect and kindness to everyone who walked through the door. The empty corner table where Hollywood icon had sat became something of a symbolic spot. Staff and diners alike often glanced at it, remembering the night that had changed so much. It wasn't just a table anymore, it was a reminder of the power of humility, the importance of respect and the possibility of growth in even the unlikeliest of circumstances. As Samantha wiped down the table at the end of another shift, she paused for a moment, staring at the empty chair. Taking a deep breath, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew she had been given a second chance, and she wasn't going to waste it. Lucas walked over, holding out another mug of tea. "Long day?" he asked with a grin. "Long but worth it," Samantha replied, her voice steady. She accepted the tea with a smile, feeling the warmth seep into her hands. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she was on the right path. And as Elysian Grace dimmed its lights for the night, the echoes of Hollywood icons' words lingered in the air. The evening he had spent there was far more than a meal. It was a lesson, a moment of reflection, and a catalyst for change.